Caitlin, welcome to Get Shit Done.
Let's get some shit done. Thanks for having me, Alex.
We love that. 3-year-old's not there, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's right.
Before we
The
started recording, Caitlin was just saying she has a 3-year-old, and I always try to tell guests, like, our audience looks at us as like their business BFF, like, say whatever you want, the way you want to say it. She was like, I have to be very mindful because the 3-year-old already knows the F word. So
Unless you have a 3-year-old who's a little parrot. Yes. Like, grab your glass of wine. Let's do this.
let's do it. Okay. So I like to settle in with our guest. If you could rank from 1 to 10 right now, like vibe check, how you're feeling in the business in this moment, even for yourself, like what would that be?
How I'm feeling in my business vibe check. Ooh. I'm actually pushing a 7 or an 8. Last week I was probably at more of a fiver. But
Okay.
it's been a good week and just been working on some things to kind of get my mojo back. So
Mm, I love that. And it's okay. We invite the dogs and the babies. It's all good.
okay.
So I know the background. I'm like at this point, I know there's like some podcasts where they're just like the everything about the audio, and I'm just like, people are peopling. Like we're post COVID, like we're at home, we're doing this stuff. So hello, people.
Exactly. And if we're entrepreneurs and we're moms, we need all the help we can get. So the dog walker's picking up the dog to get him out on a walk today.
Oh, I
So
used to love that. So I had a dog with my ex, and when it was daycare time, it was like so excited. And then it was also like he would come home exhausted,
yep.
so
Yep.
exhausted. And you're like, okay, we can have a little bit of chill time. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so vibe check. 7, 8, I've just been working on some things that are getting me really excited, just things that I'm super passionate about. Particularly, we're doing an offsite in end of October, and everyone's flying into Austin to spend 2 days just together. And so just been working on that. We've got a fun and exciting theme, and just pulling together the agenda, like excited about some of the stuff that we're gonna do together. So that's kind of made my vibe check go from 5, 6 or a 4, 5 to a 7, 8.
And I love vibe checks because it's just like it literally can change every week, every day, every moment.
Yeah.
That's entrepreneurship. And we're recording this the last week of August, and it's right before Labor Day. And I have just been feeling so creative right now, like that I have space to imagine because people are offline or they're a little slower because it's like after Labor Day, it's like people are gunning for Q4 end of
Yeah.
year, and it's just rapid, rapid. And like before I used to be like, I'm gonna get a head start. And now I'm like, I don't want a head start. I'm gonna enjoy this. So I
Yeah.
love that you're like, oh, it's more, I got spaciousness. So I like
Yeah.
this time of year. So okay, vibe check is 7, 8. We love that. So I like to take it back to give some context for people of like how you got to where you are. So tell us like what was little Caitlin about? Like what did she want to be when she grew up? You know, I love asking this question because it's either like completely different or it's like there's a lot of synergies there.
Oh, completely different. I mean, if you want to go way back, like in this little baby book that we found at my parents' house when they left our childhood home, apparently I wanted to be a housekeeper when I grew up. So that's what I wrote down, which is obviously nothing of what we're doing now. But
Right.
looking back at sort of my past and my childhood, I was a very competitive athlete and played collegiate soccer. And so I do think that then fueled a lot of entrepreneurship and running a business and really just the bringing out the ultimate competitor in myself. So I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of times, like, you might have competitors out there you're competing against, but ultimately you are your ultimate competitor. And that has given me a lot of my drive and my persistence. And my ability to overcome adversity, I think, comes a lot from being an athlete. So, little Caitlin was very busy doing sports and running around literally on the soccer field and on the track. And I think that kind of running fuel and drive is still in my business today.
I love this. I was talking to friends about this, like, because I'm a millennial and I feel like Gen Z, they grew up obviously on devices and that in-person component. I also played soccer, I was in basketball, I was a dancer, and I think that really shaped so much of how I show up as an entrepreneur. This is why I like to ask people this because it helped me to learn how to be collaborative and in teams. And now we're dealing with this loneliness thing, and I'm just like, kids and people need, like, we're tribal, humans are tribal. It doesn't matter what you like. I was just watching the Dallas Cowboys documentary
Yes.
over the
Yes.
last couple, and I love sports documentaries. I don't know what it is, but I love them. And it's so interesting because you realize, like, even the fans of sports, you can, I don't care what race you are, what or religion, that is the moment most humans who are fanatics don't care what you
Yeah,
are. They
yep.
literally are just like, "Oh, you're a part of my, you like my team? Okay, we can be
We're cool. We're
friends."
cool. Yep. Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah, so I love that you were in sports. So, okay, you were this competitive athlete, and then like what were you doing professionally before you started Cred? And like in hindsight, how do you feel like those experiences actually
yeah.
shaped you as an entrepreneur?
Right. I actually use that as a part of my bio. So, and then I can give context on cred too for the audience, just to sort of set the scene for the rest of our conversation. But first job out of college, worked at a tech startup. This was, 2010 when 2009 when like tech started kind of really exploding, I would say. I did marketing and all things marketing, jack of all trades. So, demand gen, events, um, content, social, all of that stuff. Part of that was we hosted our own event, which is called Ramp Up, which is still a very big event in ad tech. So I got my experience wet and dipped my toe in just event management and how to run and host a thought leadership event. I left LiveRamp because my now husband at the time got a job opportunity in Australia. I was doing brand strategy and planning for a creative agency. So really working on brands, mission, vision, values, and then how do you bring that to life in a physical campaign, whether it's a billboard that you see, a radio ad, or a website. And when we moved back, I knew I couldn't still work with this agency. And so kind of started thinking of what I wanted to do and got this opportunity and saw this opportunity of putting those two backgrounds together. So I say, my experience with marketing and event management combined with my experience with brand strategy and planning and seeing what a powerful brand really can do for your business planted the seed for Cred. And so what Cred does is we're all about events, but we focus on event impact. So we build thought leadership through events, through event management and helping companies host their own events, and then also placing speakers at industry conferences and events and podcasts all around the world. So we really look at, a lot of times it's the CEOs or the founders, but how you want to position whoever it is as the face of the brand. How do we build out their thought leadership? And then what events and themes and topics are relevant to help them go out and speak on different stages at different conferences.
I love that, especially it's always been important, but I think now everyone's like, what's my brand? What am I supposed to do? And then I hear so many people, it's funny. I was talking to my friend Christina Alessi, who's like, she books speakers like Simon Sinek and all of that. And, we're gonna have a conversation on the podcast around like, not everyone should be a speaker, but like, what are some, like, it's just
Yes,
not,
that too.
it's just like
Yep.
not everyone should be an author because there's these really blanketed things that like with thought leadership and personal brand that people have done who have done it well and like they have their playbook, but then it's just like does that work for everyone? So I like that you are even at this intersection of people are craving connection and in person.
Yeah.
So I love that you all do this. So tell me, like, we know what Cred does, but why was this so important to you, given your
Yeah.
contacts? Why was this important for you to solve?
Well, going back to this competition thing, right? It was a competition with myself because when I was moving back, I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. I might as well see if I can get this up and running. And then the wheel started turning, right? So now it's a competition with myself. Can you really do this? So, um, you know, can you sign enough business to make this a living for yourself? And then it was like, okay, now we have enough business and I can't do the business and the new business and the marketing and all of that. So now we have enough clients where I can hire someone. And then slowly but surely, that's what kind of got the engines turning. And one by one, when we'd have enough clients, that meant we could hire somebody and then we could hire somebody else. And then we started building a team and now we have a team. So now we need more internal structures and processes. And so I do take it back to that competition of like it was just my own drive of, is this something that I can do and am I up for this challenge? And I think am I up for this challenge? But that also allowed me to set my own pace and set my own challenges, for is this working? Am I challenging myself enough or is this too much? Do I need to kind of pull back. So we are a bootstrap business, and that's kind of how we have fueled and gotten the momentum is just getting enough business and then turning that into, okay, now we can invest back in the business to hire people, which then allows the business to grow. Um, and we are now 20 employees. So we've been as high as 28. We've been hovering around 20 for the last 3 to 4 years. And the fun fact that I love to share is that we are all women as well. So
Love
we've
it.
got a great community, yes, of women that we try and foster and build confidence in and support their careers.
I love this. I also tell like people, I'm like, I tried to hire men, and I do have one. His name is Alex. I do have one guy on my team, but I feel like we'll go through and we'll vet, and then we have this very structured process where we have to rank like and quantify, so it takes the bias out.
Yeah.
And hands down, every time the women are just crushing.
Yeah.
So it's just like we try, we really
Right.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We have had men on the team. So
yeah.
definitely is a thing, but also the PR industry
It's
is
very
pretty female dominated. Yeah. And
for
it
for
was
sure.
something that, for a while I was almost embarrassed to share it. But then in the last few years, it's like, why would I be embarrassed? We get to work and support and uplift and, mentor women, and we get to do it every day. And that's something to be
Yeah,
proud of. So it's pretty cool.
absolutely. And something that, and this is why context matters so much. Like, I think sometimes we're told these blanketed things, advice around entrepreneurship. One being like, you need to be so passionate and purposeful about the problem you're solving. And what I love that you said is like, I was actually competing against myself. And sometimes it's really that. It's just like I wanted to build this certain lifestyle for myself. Like
Yeah.
Tony Hsieh, when he took over Zappos, was like, didn't give a shit about shoes. He was just like, I want to solve for customer service, which is consistently shitty. In Zappos, he built a culture of really good customer service. And another thing that you said that really stood out to me was around bootstrapping, that the majority of businesses will bootstrap. We'd have a combination of VC backed and bootstrap companies on this podcast for that reason. But I
Yeah.
always love asking people, as a bootstrap company, what do you feel has been one of the most unglamorous sacrifices you had to make to get to this level?
A lot. I mean, especially as a business owner, you invest a lot of your time, your resources, but also money. So, I feel like I'm so into the business because I have put so much of my blood, sweat, and tears and literally dollars when I've had to. So, we don't want to bring up that thing that happened in 2020, but there's a lot of sacrifices that had to be made. And at that point, we had 28 mouths that we were feeding, and it ended up just being like, okay, how do we keep this thing alive and how do we keep it going? So there are definitely sacrifices, but I also think it keeps you humble. So if you are bootstrapped, I think it forces you to be smarter with your budgeting and your financial decisions and investments that you make. And that's a positive. We're no longer at the point where we have to hire, it's so cause and effect of like, now we have an extra client, so we can hire. Like we've been able to get away from that, thankfully, after 10 years. But it has still forced us to be very conscious with the decisions that we make and make sure that we do have the runway that we do, because it's not just, millions of dollars after closing your Series A in the bank. It's just a different approach and a different way to look at forecasting, budgeting, and planning. But I think it's, a conservative way that has actually really helped us.
Oh, absolutely. I think about like even the big, I like asking this question because it's like we think of, growing and revenues and all of that. And the larger the contracts we started getting, the more time it takes for them to get
Oh yeah.
processed.
Yeah,
And
that
I
too.
just remember, I'm just like, there was times I had to process fucking invoices on my credit card, my personal credit
Yeah.
card, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, we're still waiting. There's this gap of waiting
The
period.
closing.
So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like when you're bootstrap, it's because I've done both. I've done VC and I've done the bootstrap route, and it's just different. And in both, I have been in binds in both. In both. I don't think if you raise
Yeah,
capital
that's
does
no,
not
that's
solve
true.
everything. You're
No.
still in the trenches for
That's
sure.
true. I mean, bootstrapped or not, this is crazy. This has happened a number of times, but we will sign a client and 3 weeks later, like sign a 6 month contract, and
Yeah.
3 to 6 weeks later, they come back and say they can't do it because of budgeting. I'm like, why would you agree to sign on for 6 months when you knew you didn't have the
Have the
budget?
money.
how does that work? That just feels irresponsible. But so that does happen. But which one would you do again if you can only choose one?
Oh, bootstrap, always. And it's so funny. It's funny because the majority, I would say 99% of my friends who have raised capital, especially the venture capital route, all of us, there's very few that are like, I would not do it again. I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
And if we did it again, we would always just focus on revenue. It's just like we would still behave like a bootstrap business. And it's like it's not demonizing one or the other. It's just saying that we came up in a time that the way you were told is successful in building businesses, we're now seeing that model fall apart.
Yes.
And now even VC saying like you need to have traction. Like this is one of the worst fundraising environments I have ever seen as an entrepreneur. And I started raising in 2010. So it's just like, this is insanity.
Yeah.
But I do think every business, despite what path you go down, should be operating like if I am the only investor here, what are the decisions I would be making if it were
Yeah.
just my cash on the line? Because then you personalize it and it's not just fun money.
Right.
Like none of this is free. None of it
Right.
is free. So
Yeah.
I love this. So I love that you mentioned the process part of this. And I want to dive more into that because something we see, I mean, you've done what, 30,000 events
We have 30,000 events in our database. Yeah.
in
So
your
we've,
database,
yep,
right? That's
reviewed.
insane. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
And growing
30,000.
over the
Yeah.
last years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So 30,000 events in your database. You have to put in a lot of processes, systems in place to make sure it's organized and all this. Something we hear from founders and is the biggest barrier to getting to the next growth level
Yeah.
is there's a lack of systems. And I do think like you certain stages only require so much. Like you don't need to over systematize, but also I usually see the other side of like there's nothing and everything's so manual, and then you start bringing people on, and then systems break.
Right.
And then you're wondering like we have all these people, but why aren't we growing? And it's just like there's not the infrastructure to support this new talent to do their job well because everything's in the founder's head. So with that being said, I would love for you to walk founders through like even from the beginning to now, like how did you approach putting systems in place to support the growth and scale of this business? Because so many founders get so overwhelmed by this process, they don't even know where to start.
Well, I think that's what I was going to say, actually. It's the first is like, don't feel so much pressure to solve the you can't predict what's going to happen in 3, 4, 5, 10 years, especially now with AI. Let's not even get into that. But don't feel pressure to think, how am I going to solve this when we're 10x? Because you're probably not going to have that answer. So I think ship something so you have it and then have flexibility and also grace for yourself that you're not going to have it all solved up front. So I think that that is really, really important. And then, do what you can to build a system that is as robust and as effective for you as possible upfront. So think through, it's different for every scenario. But for us, when we're putting events in our database, it's like, okay, which fields are going to be helpful? Well, obviously, we need the event name, we need the URL, the dates, the location. Where else can we add this thing? And then we just kind of started building from there. So, the events from 10 years ago don't have the same level of detailed data as they do now, but each one learns on itself. And now with AI, like it can still take whatever inputs you have before and even fill it out or make it, it's learning. Those are inputs that and prompts that it's learning from. So I'd say take off the pressure and then just try and think full circle. Like in the beginning, I remember, and this is 10 years ago, so a lot's happened since then. So it's hard for me to look back. But I remember we wrote on a whiteboard the client onboarding journey. And we just wrote, okay, let's make the process. So the client signs a contract. Then what happens? Well, we probably should have a kickoff call. Okay, well, we're going to send them an email to set a kickoff call. What's going to be on that agenda? Well, let's think, what questions would I have and want to know? So you just kind of put yourself in the shoes of a scenario and walk through it and document it. And then you don't have to build all that out right at that time, but then you have kind of a process that you can build on as you grow and scale and get faster. And then, I mean, I always say like move fast and break things, right? Ship it and it's not going to be good. It might not be perfect. But the way that we've always kind of learned is sometimes by failing. And sometimes that is sort of the best way to learn. So we do that. with our external processes, but also with our internal processes as well. So, which I think is really important. You talk about Zappos and they're like building a culture, and he did a great job of just employee culture and employee happiness, I think they called it. Put yourself in the shoes of an employee. So what happens in the onboarding experience? What does that look like? And what would you want to do on your first day? Not as a founder, but as an employee there. And then that will help you sort of build out that process too.
Exactly. And I loved what you mentioned because I think with the amount of tools and things like that, like founders, I find start with the tool first and then try to figure, okay, how do we fit our business into this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the tools don't matter. So like, for example, I'm like, it's great that you're getting recommendations from friends, but that's what the
There.
flow of their business and
Yeah.
what works for their brain and their team looks like. Like I've given this for OG listeners, I've given this, example a lot is I have friends who love Asana. It does not work for my brain. Oh my
Same.
God. I'm like, what is happening? I love Monday. I
Yeah.
love Monday. The visuals, the cut, like that for me, I'm like, that flows. But if I would have listened to the friends up front that were like, that worked for their team, I would have been onboarded to the system that I didn't like. And so I
Yeah.
love that you broke it down as like, just start pen and paper. Literally in our accelerator, we do this for our operations section of it. Like have founders write pen and paper. What is
Yep.
happening in the business so you know what to optimize for, and also understanding Rome ain't built in a day. So like you got to bit by bit. You're going to see a lot of broken things or things that need to be optimized, and
Yeah.
sometimes that in itself can feel overwhelming. You're like, I want to fix everything at once, but it's
Yep.
like, how do you then rank the priority based on this thing is a priority because if we fix this, then it will make all these other things easier. Like what is tied directly to revenue or your productivity of your team or happiness of your
Yeah.
team, whatever that have
Yeah.
to deal with this stuff. So I love that you broke it down that way. And you're also in this, a niche market. And I always say like niche is very sexy. I love niche. Niche is so sexy.
Well,
The most
I agree because
profitable.
we are, but it can be a challenge too because over
Yeah.
time people go through, oh, I say niche, but niche agency that only focuses on one thing and is really good at it. And that's us. We are the thought leaders and the experts in events and thought
Mhm.
leadership. But other people, then they go through the swing of like, no, we just want a one-stop shop of someone that does everything. So it ebbs and flows. But going back to your earlier point too of just why I started Cred, like I saw this, nobody was doing what we were doing. PR firms do it, and they even admit and agree, we partner with them a lot. For speaking, it's the last priority or the last thing in the scope. It's the last thing on the agenda. It's a junior person that does it. And it's very reactive. There just isn't a lot of thought to it. And that's, no fault of their own. They're focused on the journalists and the placements and the media publications, which is just a different skill set. And it's a whole different Rolodex of contacts too. So what we did is kind of flip that model on its head and thought, well, if we just do this one little portion that you guys don't want to do anymore, and we get really, really good at that, then we can expand in different industries and we can expand and work across different speakers. Or, now we've expanded and doing more social content, but on the individual level. And so naturally it's evolved, but we focused on like, let's focus and do this one thing really, really good and get really good at it and then see where that takes us. And that has been a big driver of our success, I think, of not steering away from that focus, not trying to do too many different things and be experts in all of them. Just really, pinning the dial and putting in that niche to allow us to be experts in that one thing.
This is a theme that we hear. There's five top things, but one of the top things that we hear from founders who have successfully grown their businesses is focus.
Yeah.
And I always liken it. My family loves Cheesecake Factory, loves it. Like that is when I'm home, they're like, we're going to the Cheesecake Factory. And I'm like, it's
How,
great. I love the cheesecake, but sometimes I look at the video, I'm like, just tell me what to eat.
it's a
So
50-page menu. They have 72 different
they have
flavors of cheesecake.
And the thing is, a lot of the things are good, but I'm just like, I can't decide. And so I think there's something like, for example, when founders are thinking about their businesses and it's just like, well, our competitor is this. I'm like, your competitor is not Amazon.
Yeah.
And Amazon started with books. So then
Yeah.
it scaled to all these categories. We did the same thing in my last company. We were fashion tech e-commerce. We started with denim and men's denim. We were very specialized. We didn't get into women's until 5 years in. And we were still just in denim, knowing that over time we want to outfit your entire closet, but we need to be known for what and doing one thing well. especially knowing our capacity as a small business. I'm like, we don't have the funds to be able to cover all these categories and
Yeah.
all this inventory. There's no way. So I
Yep.
love that. It's like, how do you stay super focused? And I think the best businesses are very niche and they're able to, yeah, they're able to just get really focused, and people are like, I know exactly what to expect from you. So for founders who are feeling that maybe like they're feeling like I'm leaving money on the table by just focusing on this one thing, how would you recommend they rethink that and also position their business to say, no, this is what we're focused on and the benefits of just focusing on that thing?
This is what we're focused on right now. So I think to your point, we have a very niche business. You said you started at denim, but it didn't stop there, right? You focused on denim to start right then, and that allowed you to learn and get really good at it, and then naturally you will expand in other areas. So I think for founders is like it's also we're at a stage, and I feel like before founders are like you're so busy, the more you can do. Oh my gosh, I'm a founder, I run my own business, so I must be working 80, 100-hour weeks. Like it doesn't need to be that way. And I don't
And
feel
it
like it's,
shouldn't.
I was going to say, I
Like,
don't
we got
feel
to
like
stop
the
glamorizing
sentiment or
that.
the vibe isn't as, that's not glamorous anymore. But
Yeah,
I think, having the focus, there's actually a lot of benefits of it. There's a book called The One, I think it's called, and
that's a
it
good
talks
one. Yep.
all about the value of just focusing on one thing, and
Mm.
so think about it in the long term, one thing for now, and then what that will do for all the other things that you want to accomplish down the road. This is kind of a short-term gain for a long-term solution.
Yeah, the one thing now. I really love that. And I think that it's obviously paid off. You have an 80% referral rate. And this is something we also see with literally everybody on this podcast. Very strong, not just retention, but referral.
I
And
love that.
so, from your experience doing this over the last 10 years, what do you think has built that referral flywheel? What are the specific things you think that you and your team do extraordinarily well that makes your customers say, I need to introduce you to more people?
Yep. I mean, I think we're good at what we do. So that
Period. Let's
obviously,
have a good product.
yeah, I mean, it starts with that, deliver on what you say, but it sounds so simple. Like do what you say you're going to do is huge. I mean, in our values or, some playbook that we have internally, like we have, the way we treat our customers is also the way we treat ourselves. So we have a thing like we get back to every client within 24 hours. We get back to every employee within 24 hours. And that email, that acknowledgement might be, I see your note. We need time to look into this. I'll get back to you next week. But at least you're getting them an answer right away. So I think reliability, doing what you're saying you're going to do. So, I always tell people too, if you're on a call with someone and the client asks you a question, it's okay to say you don't know, but make sure you write it down and you go follow up and get them an answer when you say you're going to get it and follow through on that. So I think that has allowed us to become a really reliable business. Um, which is really important so they can expect like quality service when they come to us. I also think for better or for worse, we go above and beyond for clients, which sometimes, a services business means you're going over scope, but I do think that has paid off in dividends because, that allows us to show exceptional service where either they will add on, stay with us, or refer us. Um, and then I think I would like to think there's things that we do that are just a little quirky that keeps us around. So we are a lowercase c in our name, lowercase c for cred. We lowercase or uncapitalize a lot of things in our communications just to kind of keep it consistent with our brand. But I think that sort of just makes people like look twice and then remember us. I'm a big fan of the OPS. So you put whatever you want in the email, but then the OPS can be like the main meat or the thing that you want them to read. Um, and then lastly, just from a marketing perspective, something that has been huge for our business is our newsletter. So we have put out a newsletter every month for the last 10 years. It used to be more a recap of, oh, here's our business and we just hired somebody and look at it, here's our new client that we just signed, like meet X. Now it's expanded to be a little bit more like industry knowledge and based. So here's what's happening in the industry. Here's a list of events of all the events we're going to the next month. Let us know if you're going to be there or, just for you to click and check out. But every single person that I email, sorry, automatically gets added to this newsletter. You can unsubscribe if you don't like it, but
I like it. It's
um,
fine.
yeah, but the amount of people that will literally email me and I last spoke to in 2017 and they say, "Hey, are you guys still doing that speaking thing?" It's like, "Yeah, we are." How did you even remember our name to look us up to reach out? I'm not sure, but I do think the newsletter and all the other things I talked about do make us memorable. So that and then just keep in touch with people, right? Somebody a lot of times what happens, we call them a boomerang, or two things, I guess. We call them a boomerang. So if a client wants to leave, we make sure that we leave amicably because you never know when they're going to want to come back or when that point of contact is going to leave and go somewhere else and then might want to take you with them. So always, try and keep friends, not enemies, because you never know when they're going to come back in different stages of your business or your life.
Absolutely. And what you're bringing up, we've heard from so many women on this podcast, despite what type of business it is. And OG listeners, we've said this multiple times now, it's like more of a consultative approach, which
Yeah.
just it means like more of this human, like concierge approach
Yeah.
where, yes, you're going to leverage certain technologies in your business. There was this one guy I went on a date with, and he literally like he has a great company in the tech space, and I was like, oh, we are so misaligned because he was like, I see you. He's like, how many hours are you working? How often can people get to you? And all of this other stuff. And he was like, yeah, no one should be able to get to you, only like the high net worth or whatever. And I'm
Oh,
like, well, that makes you happy. I'm happy that makes you happy. But I actually get a lot of energy and become better at my job when I'm able to talk to so many different people. And actually, I took that approach in my last company and I noticed later on, I'm like, I'm unhappy because I feel like I'm so apart from the
yes.
people I serve. So am I spending all day every day? No. But I'm like, sometimes it's just to understand what's going on. And then it
Mhm.
also helps me to understand how do we optimize products and services that we have because we're so constantly in the know. So just being consultative, being in touch, understanding what's happening, and those really nice touches. For those of you listening, we did a really good episode with Nicole Vasquez on like nurturing your network, and she actually went through this where I send a quarterly update to a network VIPs. There's like 100, and it's just updates on what's happening with me and GSD. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's just random stuff like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. If anybody's there, join me. Or like, I saw this cool article. And I get so many people who are like, I love getting those messages from you because
Yeah.
I'm staying up to date with what's going on. And to your point, you had a client who was like, oh, I heard, are you guys still doing this thing? And maybe they were just lurking before, but then a
Right.
little later, they're like, actually, I have some ideas. So I want to go back to something you said, and it reminded me of another thing you said, is you mentioned that you all are treating your clients the way you're going to treat yourself. So how fast you're responding. And then even you said something earlier where you're like, we're going to just put stuff out and we're going to see what happens and allow ourselves to fail if we fail.
Yep.
Women are not always socialized that way.
No.
And we feel like we have to take on everything. And sometimes when it's going back to when you said how we treat ourselves, sometimes we're not even treating ourselves that well
Most
because,
often.
yeah, most often because we are nurturing everybody else. But I'm curious for you, how did you get to this place where it sounds like we call BVE, big vagina energy, where you're at this point where you're just like, I'm going to give myself grace and I'm going to treat myself well so I can treat these customers and these clients well too. And I do think our businesses are reflections of how we treat ourselves as leaders.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how does that process look like for you, or like what's coming up for you?
I mean, you don't want to go under the covers because it's like, no, I mean, I do think every woman should needs to give themselves more grace, right? So, I mean, and this is what my advice that I say to people, like fake it till you make it. Like nobody knows all the shit that you're dealing with or even all the anxiety you have when you are public speaking or running a meeting. Like they don't know that and they don't have to know that. So you can have that, but fake it till you make it. Like get on there and just act like you don't. Which is obviously easier said than done, but um So yeah, there's that. I mean, the giving yourself grace, I will say I need to do a better job of that myself. So this is a good reminder. But kind of what you said of like do the things that you enjoy doing, and do them on your own time and pace. So I think, I do think we're pushing and we're getting better at just like women standing up for themselves and women saying no. And also just I think the more people talk about how they don't give themselves enough grace and like standardizing that, I think is really important. And is kind of helping us all as women come together and recognize like nobody has their shit together. Um, to
No one. Yeah.
yeah,
And even like when you said like, and again, this is like we do these conversations because you get to pick and choose, like, oh, that feels good for me. I want to incorporate that. Like you're like, oh, we're going to respond within this amount of time. I'm infamously not a great responder. Like, and I give myself that grace. Like, actually, Fridays are my day where I just go through my inbox and I'm like, let's catch up. Of course, there's certain things where I'm like, this is like very needs my attention right now. And I always just say to people, thank you so much for your patience. I acknowledge the elephant in the room and it's worked for me. It has worked
yeah,
for me. But it's
yeah,
also like, how do I give myself grace versus creating so much angst? But I also have discerned what are the things that I need to be really responsive to immediately, and what are things that, okay, I can take a little time because my
yeah,
brain is on overload. So it's like, if
yeah,
I know it's like big client, of course they're going to get that response, but it's
yeah.
like, do I need to like zero inbox zero every day? No, I haven't seen my inbox zero ever.
So this is why I'm like not rolling my eyes, but I'm sighing like it is hard because I am an
Mhm.
inbox zero person,
I
right?
love that for you.
So going back, I know, and I love that for you. Like going back to, the why people come back to us, I do think like I did grind. Like I did work a lot, but I was at the time in my life when I could do it and I enjoyed it. I didn't do it because I felt like I was chained to my laptop. I did it because I was like vibe, I was a 10 out of 10 vibe. Like I would just get on and respond to emails and be doing whatever I wanted late at night because that was just what felt good to me. Um,
Yeah.
so I even forget where I was going with this now, but I am someone that does do inbox zero. But you know what? I'm also my inbox zero, my strategy is like the snooze zero. So I will respond and say, "Hey, let me get back to you next week," or I'll get back to you on Friday. And then I snooze it to Friday when I know I have time to actually go through and respond to it or action on it, whatever it is. So it's like inbox zero with a twist.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
yeah,
Yeah. Just
I'm
giving
a
people
big fan of the
cadence.
snoozer. Yep.
Oh, I love that. A snoozer. You can do snoozer. I'm gonna try more snoozer. I have done some snoozers like in text, but I'm gonna do it more in email. So I love this. And this again, everyone needs to go with what you said. Feels good for you as a leader. Like people are like, I'm gonna wake up at 4 a.m. I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm never waking up at 4 a.m. I'm
When
just
and all
not.
the mom bloggers that I follow, they get up at 4:30 because that's the
That
only
works
time
for
in the
them.
morning they have. And it's like, gosh, I wish I could do that, but it's
Yeah,
not for me. I
God
used to
bless
be a
you.
5 a.m.er. Like I was up 5:05 every day in the gym, and it just doesn't work like that anymore.
And you get, and this is the other thing, you get to change. That's the beauty. You get to
That's right.
change.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of all this.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm hearing too is like you've built this really great culture and performance with your team. And one of the things you have done well, and we've talked about this too, for those of you listening in, we have our traction tracker, and it's something you can use with your team. But you create transparency around your numbers, which I think is really important. I started this with my co-founders in my last company where I mean, we had our weekly stuff, but every month we would go into what happened. And
Yeah.
I mean, down to our shipping department. Like, this was
Wow.
not just an
Cool.
executive meeting or manager's meeting, it was everybody in the team. Because the wonderful thing is that even those, what people see as entry level jobs, we could get down to, okay, we had, this was the outcome. We spent this, or we had a deficit here. And you have someone in the shipping department, oh, we kept seeing a lot of delays. And then we're like, oh, that's why returns were up,
Yeah.
right? It's just like this, you create this ecosystem and this community where it takes the, to me, the pressure off of the CEO
Sure.
to have all the answers. So I'm wondering for you, how have you over time really shaped that transparent culture, and what does it look like?
Um, I think. again, it goes back to like put yourself in their shoes. So I do think that seeing numbers and seeing motivating, like, yeah, it was a really busy month, but look how much money we made. And then they know that that goes into the end of year bonus pool that, gets divvied up to employees at the end of the year. And that's really motivating. So I think, I mean, I'm definitely an oversharer for information, but I feel like all those inputs are just helpful and everyone processes and inputs different types of information at different times. So across 20 people, like all this information that we're throwing at them is bound to be helpful in their jobs to a certain extent, right? But I've always felt that, and I've actually fortunately always been at companies where they are pretty transparent with numbers and what they share, and so I just kind of naturally took that on. But again, I just put it myself like if I were in their shoes, I want to know how much money we're making. If I were in their shoes, I want to know if we had a good month or not, or like why we spent so much and where we spent it, because that impacts everyone's day to day. And so, we have 20 people. We're a small agency, but we try and keep like a very small agency, mom and pop top type shop and feel. And that's because we want our employees to feel valued. So I think sharing that type of information, but also like we say the transparency goes two ways. So we're sharing all this information with you. If you have something to share with me, like please, the door is open. I expect that from people so we can learn from employees and grow and adapt and develop new things as we need to. And so the expectation definitely goes two ways. And I think that goes like numbers are obviously very important to be transparent too. So we have a revenue dashboard that we pull up every week to see, we go over the business that we signed that week, but the dashboard is open so people have access to it at all times that they can see the revenue that we signed every month for the year, the expenses and then the profit. I think it also goes into though when you think about transparency, like transparency into decision making. So we have a big company update that we're sharing. Not only you're sharing the update, but you're sharing kind of the inputs that led to that decision and why. I think that that really helps get people on board and understand, if we're making a big change or if it's a whatever we're taking Friday off, at least you tell people we've been working really hard, so we're giving you an extra day. Give context to the decisions that you're making. And then every quarter, so we've got our in our all hands, we talk about the business we signed, and then once a quarter, we have our Cred quarterly where we just dive in more into numbers and goals tracking and metrics and how we're doing. Another thing, I don't know, this is just a random tip that I have, but I was going to say each team and each owner of departments, so whoever owns our marketing, whoever owns our Airtable base, which is our database we put all our events into, they give an update too. So I think a tidbit or a tip that we have is, and I started this way back when, like I don't run the all hands. Once a month we rotate and a different person on the team does it. And actually now that we have so many people, it's only um, below managers, so senior associates and below. They run the agenda. We have the format, but it's on them to put the agenda together to make sure it's updated. Then they present and run through and walk through the agenda and share their screen because it's a confidence building booster for them. Sometimes people get fun. In this theme, we had hairstyles. So she took 5 minutes in the beginning to go through a new hairstyle and we learned about it and said why. And then the three people share their highs of the week and their lows of the week. They also share their favorite hairstyle or the craziest hairstyle they ever had. But it's like a fun way to
Yeah.
interact and get to know people and build kind of a fun culture. But the intention behind it was like, I don't need to talk all day long every day, every Thursday for our all hands. Like other people can share the updates, and there's a lot of benefits that comes out of that too. So it's a really nice.
Yeah. I love this, and it's also making me think of like when it comes to transparency with numbers and feeling like,
Really sidetracked from that transparency,
oh,
but
no,
yeah,
no, no. No, it all actually flows very well together
yeah,
because
together.
all of this goes back to you let go of the reins a little bit. Like you took your grip off
Mhm.
and you literally have more room for your team to pick up the slack. So
Yeah.
then as the founders were holding on so tight and you have that tension and then you're stressed and it's like there's no room for anyone else to come in. And that actually made me think around when people, I think there's a lot of shame around how we should look as leaders. Like we need to have it all together. Like maybe sometimes people aren't sharing their numbers because they feel a sense of shame around it. Like I as a leader, we didn't hit those numbers, so it's on me. Instead of it being like, yeah, this is not the best, but how can we improve? And that type of humanity is, I think, what people want out of leadership, because they also want to step in to say, I'm here because I want to be a part of this company to solve what you all are solving for. So what would you say to founders who feel like they do have to hold on so tight? Because it sounds like you're saying, I don't need to be the one to do all of these things, but I think that's easier said than done. And it
Yeah.
takes times and repetition to be like, let me back off. Because I see this a lot with women founders, is they're like, well, I let that person do that one thing and then they made a mistake. And it's like, I'm just gonna keep doing it. And it's just like, hun, this is gonna be a really long journey. It's gonna be a really rough one too. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how that even, what your journey looked like.
It's a it is a balance of, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs or founders are perfectionists as well. So it's finding what you can let go and what you're okay to not have be as perfect as you would do it or exactly how you would do it is hard. That's the constant battle. I Someone wrote something somewhere like founders notice everything. Like they see that typo, they notice that you like did it a different way or you like cut the corner. I'm not going to say anything, but I noticed it. Um my advice would be, I mean, there's difference, right? I didn't stop leading our all hands because I had too much on my plate. I thought it was a good opportunity. Like it was more of a proactive idea, right? So if you are struggling, maybe look at all the things that you're struggling with or everything that you have on your plate and don't think, "Oh my gosh, I have to give this off because I can't handle it anymore." Think like who else might be able to do this and maybe even do it better if it was, if they had the time to do it. Because that's the thing I find is like you have 10 different things you need to do today. Like they're all going to get done half-ass because you don't have physically the amount of time in the day to do them all. So why don't you give it to someone who has one thing on their plate and can maybe even do it better or just do it differently than you would have because they have more time to put to it. So I would just change the narrative. Like don't make it of I don't have time to do that. It's like, okay, who else might be, how can I outsource this or how can I offload this to somebody else to work on it, right? They can spend all the time doing the research and then you can come in and review it at the top and put finishing touches on it, but don't feel the pressure to have to handle everything. Look at opportunities. And then also like that person is going to be so happy. And this is what I mean about changing the narrative. Whoever you're going to ask to do something, they're going to be over the moon like, holy shit, Alex just asked if I could work on this with her. Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They will see it as a great opportunity and they won't think, oh my gosh, she has too much on her plate and she can't handle this anymore. Like, now I have to do it. It's just more of, yeah, changing the narrative.
Right. It also reminded me of like with kids, and a lot of like therapy will be like, would you react that way to a child? Like if you gave a kid that's like 3, go and try this thing and they messed it up, would you
Yeah.
be like, I'm never gonna let you do that again? You'd be like, it's okay, let's try to, it's like, what would we need to say to our younger self in this
I
situation
know.
versus being like, you have to, and to what you're saying, it's I think a difference between having a scarcity mindset of like you only have this one shot, and a lot of times when founders are holding on and clinching that tightly, a lot of times it's a reflection of us trusting ourselves,
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
and us, our team feels it, unfortunately, as
Yeah.
well, and we're
Yeah.
not. So I'm curious, what do you think are things that a lot of entrepreneurs are, or what's one thing that you feel a lot of entrepreneurs are not honest about that they should be?
Wow. That's a great question. Um, I mean, my first instinct is to just say like how much they're balancing and juggling, and being honest about what you're going through. Um, that would be, yeah, repeat the question.
Yeah, what do you feel is something a lot of entrepreneurs are not honest about and they should be? So, for example, um, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are not honest about how long something might have taken, or not honest about all of the people involved in getting them there. So this idea of like you bootstrap and you pull yourselves up and the hero's journey, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you don't just meet these magical, mystical mentors at one step or this one marks out your journey. I'm like, there's literally consistently everyone across the journey that are there with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are not honest about that. We've created a really toxic culture that people think, well, I have to pull myself up, or that I'm not strong enough, or that I'm a failure. And it's just like, but those people didn't pull themselves up by themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. That's a great example. I think people aren't honest about like the complexity of decisions that they're making or doing or what they're going through.
Mhm.
They make it seem like it's no big deal when they closed a fundraise, when we know in today's environment that's huge. And
Yeah.
I also think they're not honest about like giving themselves grace and praise for whatever big celebration they have. They brush it off. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, not celebrate. What did Jax Black, my former coach, she said, Alex, you need to learn how to breathe through your celebrations. So I love that. I think that's a great one. So my final question to you, and the reason we do this podcast is we want to revolutionize what business success looks like, and that is different for everybody. There's no one way of doing it. Like even your why for starting this business, you weren't like, I want to save the world, which like spoiler, none of you are. Stop it.
We're not,
Please
I
stop
was
it.
gonna say, when we talk about failure, someone on my team says a lot like, guys, we're not saving lives, we're
You
planning
know,
events. So unfortunately, yeah, maybe you are in the position where you are saving lives, but most of the decisions that we're making are not life or death. So if we get a typo in an email wrong, like that is something that can be corrected.
it's okay. And most people are skimming anyway, so you're fine.
They're not even skimming it anymore.
They're
It's their
not.
agent that's summarizing the email. So
Everything for you. Who
yeah.
cares? So, how would you say your definition of success in this business has evolved from when you first launched to now? And how does that look today? What are you focused on?
Yeah, it's crazy because when you think of, this conversation has taken me back, like, yeah, I grinded. And not to say I don't grind today, but I think because my lifestyle has changed, my goals have changed, my preferences have changed of like what that looks like. Um, I would say, figure out what makes you most happy. Like back then when I was working a lot of hours, like I was happy doing that. Um, my definition of success now is being able to pick my kids up every day at 5 o'clock most days. Majority roles at 5 o'clock and hang out with them and be present for the only few hours that we have with them. And I think I'm at a point too where, I've got a great team in place that takes on some of the responsibilities that I used to have to handle and manage. And that has allowed me to open up and say, okay, how can we grow and evolve and make sure that we stay sticky and make sure that we're keeping up with AI and what's happening and how can we evolve our business with that? So that has given me those opportunities. Um, but yeah, so success, I would say before was really just all about how much money can we make. And actually I was talking to a founder that's trying to get started in her business, and the only thing she kept saying is, "Well, I just really want to make 500K. I really want to make 500K this year." And I said to her, "But at what cost?" And like and she was weighing between, I'm not sure if I want to make 500K or if I want to try and date and find a future partner. And I said to her, if you grind and make 500K, you're going to get to the point where what are you going to do with all the money? Because you won't have a partner or a potential family to enjoy that time with. So if you want to make 500K because you want to travel the world and, take some time off and that's going to work for you, that's a great goal. But at what cost? So, that I think kind of opened her eyes to think like, oh, maybe it isn't just centered around a number. Maybe I should look more at other things of how to define success. So for me is being able to run my own business, but also have a personal life and a family and maybe throw in a few workouts a few days a week if I can get really good and balanced. Um, and that's kind of in the lifestyle that I've envisioned for myself and my family and just being able to support that. So it's definitely changed over the last decade. But I would say for the times and for the better.
Yes, and what I love that you're saying is like it can change because
Yeah.
we're always if you're living right, you're always evolving and growing and changing, and that is exactly what you need so you can change your mind. Maybe it's 500K, and then maybe you're like, actually, I want to work less hours and hit maybe a slightly lower number, but it's still very comfortable. And all of those things are right answers as long as they're the right answer for you. So
Yes.
I love this. For those of you of those for those of the people listening in that are just like, love Caitlin's vibe, want to work with her, how can they get connected?
Well, I will respond to every email. So
She will.
um,
She's inbox zero.
I do. I mean, credpr.com is our URL. Head there. My name is funky spelling because I know there's 10 different ways to spell Caitlin, but Caitlin at credpr.com. I will reply. And I would love to help. And I'd just love to chat all things women, supporting women. Getting more women on stages is a huge goal and actually a company OKR of ours that we track. So love your vibe and just everything that you're doing. So thanks for having me and thanks for putting on this podcast.